go ahead and get started, Frankie. You're going to start us off.
All right. Hello, I'm Frankie Gould. I'm the Associate Vice President for Communications for the LSU Ag Center. I've been an ACE member a really long time. I'm not going to say how long, but anyway. So we're here to talk about communication costs as it relates to getting NIFA grant funding and how you include that in proposals. But we're also going to tie in some other things and experiences that we have locally at our institutions. And so at the LSU Ag Center, we've had a system in place that all grant proposals, probably for over 20 years. I couldn't find a date exactly when it started, but I know for at least 20 years, all proposals that go through the Ag Center sponsored programs must answer questions on the proposal of, does the grant require production of an Ag Center publication, video, or other communications and marketing needs? And does the grant require development or upgrade of web page or other technical applications? If the answer is yes, then it requires that it comes to that communications director or IT director to sign off on the proposal, meaning that they need to know about it ahead of time. They need to be part of the planning so that they know what proper resources can be allocated for it, and that the PIs have consulted with the communications or IT specialists before the proposals are submitted, so that we make sure that there's adequate resources included in that proposal. I'm going to pass it off to Tobie.
Right. So whenever someone has a new project coming up, I get what it's called, we call it a routing form here at LSU Ag Center. And a lot of times people just send me the routing form and say, hey, can you sign this? But we like to say, what is involved in this project? What are you expecting communications, your communication needs or marketing needs to be as part of it, so that we know we have the time and the resources to be able to put their project in the queue and get them the, whether it's fact sheets, publications, a video, whatever that they need, that we have the capability to do it and that we know that it's coming. So we're not blindsided with projects, with needs that people say, well, I already have this grant and I need X amount of things by, the end of the grant funding year. So that's a way it's been built in. Like Frankie said, we don't know, I'm not sure how long it's been since before I've been with the Ag Center, and that we are built in right from jump, so that, like I said, no surprises. We know what's coming our way. So are there, any questions about this process? Any questions about how you can build this into your own processes at your own institutions?
Hey, this is Nick Kordsmeyer from Arkansas. Do y'all work? So do you work with your grants office to have that routing form, developed and sent to you?
Yes. So this is a form we've been using for decades. I'm going to say at least decades, because I've been here for 20 years, almost over 20 years. So that it has a bunch of different questions on it that they have to answer. They might need to, what kind of software, what kind of biological needs, are you testing on, are there any kind of testing involved? Is that data with foreign agencies? So there's all kind of questions that they have to answer in there. And then we got built into that form so that we weren't, like I said, blindsided, or we, weren't brought in right at the end when we didn't know what was coming our way. So yes, this is a form that goes through our sponsored programs, and we have to sign off on it. I see Ruth has her hand up. Ruth.
Thank you. I think you can hear me now. How are new faculty told about this process? Do they go through an orientation about grants, and do you have time in front of them to talk about your programs?
as part of the orientation, I think this is built into the new faculty orientation, that they learn like how sponsored programs work, how grants work. And so that's part of the process. We are not involved in that training that they go through for that particular portion of it, but we do training along the way with faculty for different asks, different times when they might need just a little media relations training, how to shoot video training. So we remind them about this process, and it's part of, just a little bit about kind of everything that we do.
And sometimes over the years, we've been asked to go meet with departments when they have department meetings, or we have 5 regions across the state. So we may meet with regions, or we may meet with 4-H agents, FCS, family consumer science agents, to build awareness and talk about collaboration and give examples on different types of ways they can build communications into their funding for grants. And we can touch on a couple over the commodity boards that we work with. It's not NIFA, but Rice Research Board and the Soybean and Grain Board for more than 20 years have paid for the production of annual reports, and that's built into the funding. And I get a small grant from them to develop those pieces. And the Rice Research Board has paid, again, for more than 20 years it's ranged over the years from about 35 to 45% of a communications person to cover rice producing parishes and the Rice Research Station. And many of you knew Bruce Schultz, and he was that communicator. He's since retired, but we were able to replace him. And recently there was a private fund grant through the Patrick Taylor Foundation that was a 4-year grant for model farms doing research and outreach on best management practices to reduce inputs and runoff, and to build sustainability in grain, sugarcane, and rice production. Consequently, reducing runoff into the Gulf of Mexico, which causes the hypoxia zone. And they have paid for a graduate assistantship, and we had her for 3 years.
Yeah, it was a communications.
That's a
Correct.
communications, person. And we've gotten 4 more years of funding, and now they're going to pay for full-time communicators to cover that project.
And I don't think you mentioned, we also have someone who is partially paid through a SNAP Ed project. So one of our communicators has, I think 30% of her salary is paid through SNAP Ed. So a lot of the work she does focuses on SNAP Ed, but she does a lot of other things as well. So it's kind of nice to have all these different pots of money paying for some of the salaries, because salaries are such a big part of our budget. And I see Ruth has asked, has funding to support communications ever been questioned and cut by the funder? I'm not sure about that, Frankie. Do you know?
No. I mean, it's very specifically built into the grant proposal. So there's, as long as that person isn't working on something else during that time, then there's no fraud taking place against that grantor or grantee. So no, that's never been questioned. And I don't know, Tobie, if you wanted to talk about equipment.
Right. So another thing we do, and this is not necessarily being built in on this front end, but sometimes when people have projects they need help with, they have different spending accounts that they can use. We have made friends with a lot of our faculty members and treated them well. So they pay that back with equipment. And sometimes with these different types of grants, we were able to get camera equipment. We've been able to get computer equipment. We've fully outfitted our videographers with new equipment in the past couple of years because of contacts and relationships we built with some of our faculty members. So when they have extra money and they may have needs that we can help them with, they're like, we just want to pay you back. What can we get you? And so we've managed to get a lot of equipment through that process. And actually, we put in a proposal for a session at the Asheville conference where we could potentially do a session all about how we've managed to get all this equipment and nice things from different faculty members and the grant money that they already have.
I did share a PDF of the Ag Center proposal routing form. Hopefully you can open it. So and it looks like Faith and I've got to jump at 12:30, says Maggie, so maybe they should go and speak.
We got a problem with the secretary. Sorry, Faith stepped away to deal with the problem. First off, I would speak from my perspective of when I was at Alabama Extension. Much like Faith, Frankie and Tobie have shared, we had it with our grants person in Alabama Extension. Part of the checkoff processes and finishing it required, are you asking for communications products or IT products to support this? The challenge is the way that Alabama Extension is set up. If people are running their grants through their college grants person, Alabama Extension, we didn't always know about it. The most notorious time was right before I left. We had a faculty member come to us in September and announced that he needed an online course launched before the university closed for business on the 15th of December. And it was a 15 to 20 module online course. So those things happen. So it's when Faith notes that it's important to understand how the grants process works for your institution, so you're getting looped in at the right time. The weirdness of Alabama Extension is because of somehow how we're set up. Faith said that at UGA, one grants, it was not divided out. So if it was research, education, it all went through the same spot. So knowing and being a friend of the grants person or your grants organization, I think is key. Having processes in place like Frankie and Tobie shared, like Alabama Extension used, is key. Also understanding how your department works. We would have people who would build in funding for personnel. But the way our Extension Communications was set up, we were not a revenue entity. So they could not give us the money for us to hire a person. So sometimes it would, the workaround was that the researcher would hire a temporary comms person in their shop, but that didn't solve a problem if something had to come through, a full publication production, operation. But like Tobie mentioned, a lot of times how we worked it was we got them to buy equipment for us. We need new Macs. We need new cameras. Can you buy some new lenses and things? So knowing how your finance process works in relation to your communications office is important, whether whether you can take in revenue or not. And if they will allow you, maybe it was just Auburn, we could get money to buy, we could buy equipment, but they wouldn't let us hire people. So all of those things you need to know about, because that impacts, how you staff projects. So, sorry, like I said, Faith is dealing with a department level issue, so she'll get over here when she can. I don't.
Can I add something in on that, Maggie? From the standpoint of, like, do you charge for your services? Like, we don't technically charge our faculty for our services, so they need, some kind of print project of publication. We're not going to charge them the labor cost to do the print project. They will pay the printing cost. They will pay whatever outside fees are associated with But if we are written into these grants, we can say, well, we can't charge you the labor cost, but can you buy our designer, maybe some stock photos or, different things they can use in InDesign to design their projects, or can you buy them? We just got a big hard drive purchase for our designers so that we can store more stuff on there. So those types of things we've managed to do, and managed to get really nice equipment that does not have to come out of my budget. Jennifer, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for sharing all this and for the form. My question is about, when is that form routed? What's the timing of that relative to as they're developing their whole proposal? So if you get that sign-off form and then you see maybe, like, you might have feedback at that point or suggestions depending on like what they're proposing. Do you have an opportunity at that point to then have conversations and help them revise their whole proposal? Or is this one of those like final things that they're doing the day before it's due?
That's a good question. A lot of times it is a final thing they're doing quickly, right before it's due. But usually they'll say, these are the things we need. And I'll ask, like, when would you need them? What's your timeline? And, a lot of the grants haven't been funded yet. So it might be, months or even a year down the line. So we just know that it's coming. It's been rare. I don't think I've ever said no to anything that's come across the desk. Frankie, I don't know if you have.
Once in a great while, they may postpone application for that grant. But in some cases, we've been lucky enough to be involved at the beginning and help write the communications section to make sure that all of our needs are covered, or what they may write in there, what they need to have that they may not realize that they need. So over the years, it's gotten much better than it was at the beginning of this process.
And I will say, my experience at Alabama Extension, our grants person did a very good job, particularly when they were onboarding new faculty, of, training them on the use of the form. That, don't wait till the last minute to roll into my office and think you're going to get signatures. So that has helped. So when those would hit her desk, usually left room for my department head or the IT department head to offer those. Can we change it here? Maybe help them fine tune it. Some of the faculty have gotten good enough about it, and they're have gotten so much grant funding, they roll in early and with their application, go, I got this idea. Can we do this? Kind of like Frankie was saying, can we build this product that will do this? So in those wonderful instances, you're along for the ride and your input is very valued. And do good things for those faculty members, because they make life a whole lot easier, even if their project is complex, because they brought you along the entire way.
Maggie, do you see Anne's question about whether this could strengthen a grant application, if it would be helpful to be able to tell that to our research and office and faculty?
I've never been on a grant funding panel because I'm a communications person, but my gut feeling is that the more specific a grant application is about its deliverables, and that's generally where communications products fall, or in deliverables, the more specific you can be, I think that improves the overall quality of your submission. Now, how it's going to fall out when it goes before the panel for review is another story, but I do think it improves the overall quality of a grant application.
And Nick, I see you have your hand up.
So I just want to clarify. So you said you don't charge for communication services. So whenever you're getting written into these grants, you're primarily looking for like equipment purchases and funding for equipment type purchases.
Right. Yeah. Mostly what we get out of these is equipment. Sometimes we may not get anything out of the grant. We are just on there to make sure that we know that this work is coming. Now, there are times where we say, like, yeah, hey, can you build in, a few $1,000s for this or a few extra dollars for these things? Some of them are really small grants and they just might require, fact sheets or some kind of printing that, we're not going to say, hey, buy us a $20,000 camera for that.
But I will say, I don't know if anyone from Mississippi State's joined us on the webinar, but I do remember our since retired colleague, Artis Ford, basically said that the grant funding for that they got, that they're like their row crop specialists and other folks got for their various projects, that the allowed them to buy equipment for the video unit, and that's essentially how they kept new equipment in place for doing Farm Week, their weekly farm show, even though that person might not be on every week, but that's how they did that. And it also enabled them to keep new equipment for is it Your Southern Garden, their weekly garden feature that Mississippi State does. I'll tell you that's how I did a weekly radio show about gardening when I was at Alabama, and I had an entomologist who was on periodically to talk about fire ants. And it was usually about once a year I got a call that says, I got this much money sitting in my grant fund. What kind of equipment can I buy you? So it was always, like Tobie said, it was always equipment, it was software packages, it was paying for elements like stock photography, stock video to complete their project.
And the people that we've were able to hire through grants were the grants that we were in at the very beginning in developing. And it's probably people like at the Ag Center, we do research, extension, and teaching. So we're not divided in terms of the grant office. It's one grant office. But if you've worked with people enough, they know at the beginning if they want to go reach out and get some money, like we tried to get an invasive species money from NIFA for a conference. And we were written in at the beginning because we were going to help conduct that conference on invasive species consortium for the southern region. Didn't get funded, but those are the types of things that we're involved with at the beginning. And then communications people or support or travel, even travel money gets added to those grants.
I do want to recommend kind of cultivating those relationships with people who you may realize have extra funds. Maybe end of the year when people need to spend that money. Hey, do you have a little extra money? I've helped you with these projects throughout the year. I could really use this piece of equipment, or I could really use some stock photos for next year. And we've had a lot of success with cultivated relationships, end of the year money, and just getting the equipment that we need through those types of channels.
And one person, Tobie, has used over the years, and she's since left us and gone to Hershey. But she's a food safety specialist, and she's even been to ACE conferences, gave presentations about how she works with communications on projects, and also to get grant funding as well. And then she bought a lot of equipment too.
Well, we are in the building with our nutrition, and some nutrition and food sciences are upstairs from the building that I'm in. And we just have built good relationships with them, and not just Dr. Zhu, but some of the other nutritionists in that program have worked with us a lot on, this type of food videos, recipe demo videos. And from doing those types of videos and working with them on those types of projects, we've managed to all new camera equipment for all our videographers and our social media specialists as well.
Everyone, I'm awfully sorry that Faith and I are going to have to jump early. We apparently got a significant issue because Faith's been typing madly since we got on. But feel free to call or email us if you've got questions, and then we can help. But I think the key points that I would leave you with is be part of the process, find a way to be part of the process, and then keep educating them every time you have something where a communication shows up to talk to your faculty, remind them. And then finally, like Tobie said, cultivate those wonderful faculty who always have lots of grant money and see if you can help them spend their money at the end of the year. So that's all I have that I would leave y'all with. Everyone, hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Maggie.
Does anybody else out there have examples of things that have worked at your institutions related to grants and communications?
I'll chime in. I'm sorry I was late getting here. But we, similar to what Tobie was talking about, our what we call our video stores account, and I don't know what it would be called where you all are, but it is the ability to take in grant funds and then spin them out for things related to video production, also professional development and travel. So it's not geared, and it could be like, so Craig Woods, a lot of you know him, we use he manages the stores account. It's for his educational video team. So we can pay for his professional development out of that because it applies obviously to the work that goes with the specific grant project. But what I would like, so video, a couple of observations. We've had, everything needs video, as we know, and we had a grant come in last year, a project request. The grant had already been funded. There were two video projects, and they estimated that it would take 60 hours and that it would cost $2,500. So that's the amount that's coming in for the project. Obviously, the salaries are covered and we already have the equipment, but there's a real discrepancy of the person writing the grant and what actually it will take. Also, I would like to figure out a way to have a cost structure for all the other things they need. Well, they're doing a video and they're doing an online class. Well, they need a campaign. They may want advertising. They need photography. Can we get some of those things covered in a similar way? And you got to tread lightly because there's a whole business model that would have to support all of that too behind the scenes. So the few things that we've been able to do, it just come into our operating fund and then it's at our discretion. But I sort of come up with a blended rate in our department of $125 an hour. And that includes my time too and the review process. And that adds up really quickly when you, even for one small deliverable, like a set of templates for social media, all, and similar to how an attorney would bill, if you look at the meetings and the emails back and forth and the reviews and the approvals and changes and all of that, I think it does help people understand just what it takes, the number of hours and the number of people involved, even to do a small project. So I threw a lot of things in there, but that was top of mind. All of that was top of mind.
So do you track that for each project, that the billable hours?
No, but I would like to, I'm trying to have a culture shift in the department, because there are some projects that go on and on and on and on, and there are 10 sets of changes. And I would like to be able to calculate what that costs the organization.
Absolutely.
So, and for billing purposes too. But, if we're reviewing a one-page flyer that is templated and it takes 5 sets of reviews and, 2 weeks worth of emails, what are we losing?
Right. And what would
Monetarily.
a outside agency actually charge for that? You would
Correct.
through the roof. Right.
And I get it, our overheads covered. So where I came up with that $125 an hour is I worked with an agency on a project a couple years ago, sometime in the last couple of years, and they billed $250 an hour, I guess. So I just cut it in half because we have all of our overhead covered. And I'm obviously think we're worth a lot more, but I think that's still a real bargain.
Jennifer, you have your hand up.
Yeah, similarly, I don't know that we're doing it well, but I can share a couple of things that we do. I'm really excited that our extension service is getting, or our division is getting a grants person. So we will have a new best friend soon. And so I'm hopeful that we will be able to have some sort of checkpoint in that process for things that run through us, and not everything will. The way we work is depending on the grant, if the communication things are going to be in the budget as opposed to just awareness. We are able here to do, we have fees on file in the fee book. And if someone on our team is going to be spending a substantive amount of time, like they're on the grant team or the project, they could be in there as FTE. So we're set up well to be able to do all of this. It happens really infrequently that something rises to the level of need, like kind of above and beyond the regular to be in the grant. And where we struggle, where I struggle, is in justifying to faculty that needs to be in there. And like Tobie said, normally, we're not charging for our services, we're base funded, we're here to do the work for extension. But they're going out and getting these grants to do this work. So what is extra and what is the usual has always been the sticking point for us. And so if anyone else is like regularly written into grants and that's become a part of what funds your ongoing operating, I'd be really curious to hear about that and hear how you explain that to folks so that they can distinguish what's just their regular business versus I'm getting grant funding to do something additional. We haven't figured that out.
Anybody else have some experiences they want to share? Good, bad, and ugly, or better? I see Scott Sinsman on the video, and he's the research administrator at Oklahoma. I would like to hear administrator's viewpoint on this.
Well, Lyndall and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, and it's the reason I got on here today. I think the conversation is, among other aspects of the things that we do as we write grants, we need to be cognizant of the other needs that we all have throughout our system. And I think this is another piece of that allows us to just be a little bit more cognizant of all that's available, what we all pay for at all of our institutions, but what all still needs our support going forward. So I think from what I heard today, a key aspect is maybe it's a way to keep up with some technology for our unit, like Lyndall's running here. And that's a pretty simple thing to do if we just have our scientists available to hear and make sure that they're doing that. Quite honestly, it's not like they're completely ignorant about all the things, but they just maybe get to a deadline and think, well, or they have a certain funding limit that they have to remain under. And I think also it's one of those things that the granting agencies also have to be a little bit more aware to allow a little bit more for something like this. And just really be aware that we need a little bit more funding for things of this nature. So I don't know. I like the conversation. I think it makes a lot of sense for us. It's not really easy because you got to explain to people. It's kind of like indirect costs, extension and research don't have the same ones. And to try and explain that to somebody, I get all screwed up when I try to do that anyways. But I mean, when you're talking about things that I know that we already pay for in other ways, it does seem to others like, okay, well, you're asking for more money, but the truth is we're trying to do more with it. And so we have to, I think, maybe look at it from a communication standpoint, which obviously you guys are right in the middle of this, and trying to make sure we can give that message to our faculty and just, hey, think about it, have a conversation with our people. If you have a need, and let's think about the need that you might have on the front end.
And there's been some grants that will not pay for salary. They'll pay for travel and expenses and research costs, but they might not pay for grad students, or they may not pay for an assistantship or extension associate or those kinds of things. And then sometimes I've seen grants where if you buy equipment, the equipment goes back to the funder. Which isn't good. Anybody else want to share?
Well, I was going to mention, we've talked about some of these different people we've been able to put into communication positions. We are working with, we have a resource home and landscape center here, and we have a new director, and she has lots of communications ideas, lots of things she wants to do with her center, branding, messaging. So I said, and she has a lot of money. She was able to get a lot of money last year. So I told her, I said, get a student dedicated to you who can work with us to do some of these things, but can really take the reins, because her needs are so abundant that I don't think we can do everything she wants us to do, but I am helping her right now hire a student worker that will technically work out of our office, but work for her and do the things that she's videos, social media, those types of things. I don't know if anyone had any other questions or wanted to chime in. I'm sorry we didn't get to hear more from Faith and Maggie, but if you have questions right now, please let us know. Well, if not, we will give you the rest of your hour back, and I will put in a plug for you to come. If it gets accepted, if our proposal for the ACE conference on, I think we've titled it, "We Get By with a Little Help from Our Friends." Come by that session if you are if it gets funded, if it gets not funded, we're talking about grants, if it gets accepted and you're at the ACE conference in Asheville this summer, come learn about how we get all our great equipment by just being friendly with people, the Southern way. So thank you guys for attending, and hopefully we'll see you guys at the ACE conference in June.